Welcome back, everybody.
Hey.
Hope everyone enjoyed our longer than usual discussion over about the Battle of Marianas
Philippine
Turkey
Sea.
Shoot, Philippine Sea,
And Leyte
Leyte Gulf. Now we're going to again continue with our island hopping campaign.
Right, but to emphasize the point of that last episode, this changes the war is unwinnable for the Japanese at this point. The only thing they can hope to do is soak the shores in American blood, and that's a quote.
Yeah.
Because they know they don't have a navy.
They don't have a
can't
navy.
reach us anymore.
They don't have any real naval air force.
Well, they don't have a really naval force.
True.
I mean, at this point, they've got cruise. They have one battleship. After this, Yamato gets sunk here shortly after the Battle of Leyte Gulf on the way home.
Right.
Leaving them with one battleship,
That's
which is
ridiculous for them.
A couple escort carriers, but no planes.
Right.
And of course, a severe lack of fuel.
True.
Which allows us to move to that next phase. We've got to get to the home islands. And the best way to do that is first Iwo Jima.
Mm-hmm.
Iwo Jima is a spit of volcanic blah.
Yeah. Good point.
In the middle of nothing. But it's the first place we assault that is considered Japanese soil.
That's true.
Sacred land.
That's true.
And so it becomes an important battle to the Japanese, probably more so than the value of the land. We won it because it has an airfield.
Right.
A big airfield, actually.
A fairly low.
Well,
actually,
I guess it was two
Three.
airfields. Two or three airfields,
Three
but one
airfields.
really good sized one.
Correct.
But we really won it as a rescue station, really.
Mm-hmm.
So that bombers that go to Japan bomb it, because they're coming from Saipan, already
True.
doing these. That's a long flight.
It is.
If they have damage coming back, they don't always make it. And
Right.
the incredibly amazing submarine net that the Navy put into effect to rescue down flyers, probably one of those unsung moments of World War II. It's just an incredible operation that they have dedicated combat ships that are actively looking for air crew that are downed.
Right.
And they save a large number of them, which is amazing, especially if they had time to radio a location before they went down.
Of course.
Huge thing. And so Iwo Jima is the next step in that. And of course, it also shortens. If we can base some fighters there, they can escort. Now it's going to be like Germany again. You got bombers with fighters right alongside bombing everything.
Exactly.
So in February, shortly after the fall of Manila, the Marines are ready to go. And John Wayne's in tow.
Oh my
with the sands of Iwo Jima. I'm not sure why they call it sands of Iwo Jima.
There's no sand.
The ash of Iwo Jima.
Right.
February 19th, Operation Detachment. Some of these are good names.
Oh,
we'll talk about that later. It
Just
gets
you wait.
goofy, though.
Oh yeah.
But they're going to land. It's only 750 miles from home for the Japanese.
That's huge.
It's big, but it's also huge for us because we got planes that can get that way.
That's what I'm saying.
easily.
Yeah. Exactly.
How big is that? 8 square miles. That's a
8 square miles. Yeah.
If you blinked real hard in an airplane, you missed the whole island.
Shoot. Yeah.
2 big airfields, 1 small airfield. And once again, we see this massive naval bombardment. Battleships finally getting a reason to exist. And it doesn't really do a whole... I mean, it disrupts, it damages morale. But when you've got a bunch of people willing to fight to the death, being shaken doesn't really bother them.
No.
They land, and again, the Japanese choose not a forward defense.
They take more of a rear defense, especially.
Let them onto the island, and then we'll fight them.
Right.
And I think part of that is the naval fire, not from the battleships. I think it's from the destroyers because destroyers come in much closer and they're much more accurate.
That's true.
We talked about that on the Normandy landing too.
Right.
So 5 and 6 inch guns don't seem like that much, but when they're accurately delivered to your bunkers,
you're shaking in your boots.
You're in bad shape.
Yeah.
And of course, they don't have to kill you; they just have to bury you.
Right. Exactly.
And of course, the sand is just horrid to the vehicles and the men. I mean, it's deep.
Mm-hmm.
If you've ever run in sand, now imagine it even deeper and finer. It's just.
There's no
miserable.
Way.
It clogs everything up.
Right.
And it's 2 or 3 days before we even get far enough across the island to get away from the beaches where it's the deepest.
Exactly. So again, looking here at our map, I know it's a little hard to see, but within the first day or so, maybe about the first week of the battle, we've made it to the middle of the island.
And Suribachi, which is the volcanic end of the island,
Correct.
the one that causes all this problem.
Right.
It's like honeycombed with defensive positions and tunnels and caves.
Right.
But we put the flag up, and then we put the flag up for the pictures.
Yep. Yep. Had to do it that way.
But I mean, whether it was true the first time or not, it's an iconic moment. I mean, it's now the National World War II Monument.
Correct.
Is that flag raising. Nothing
Right.
from Europe, but from this, a tiny little speck in the middle of nowhere. This giant moment. Is this the second one?
This is the second
Right.
flag
Because
raising.
the first one was a much smaller flag, if I remember right.
It was.
And
But again, the idea of this flag raising again, it's a morale booster.
and
for
even
Americans
better,
at
you get a
home.
Navy plus naval. The
Marines.
Marines, you get a Navy guy in there.
Mhm.
One of the corpsmen is helping. So that's that multi-service
Yes.
thing. It makes everybody happy.
And it sells so many war bonds.
Oh, it's
so
a
many
huge
war
shot in
bonds.
the Army because, well, I mean, we don't really need a lot of them because the war in Europe's looking good, but it's
Yes.
been quiet
Right.
because it's winter.
Right.
We had the Battle of the Bulge, we won,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah. That's
I don't know
nothing.
that American people ever thought we won the Battle of the Bulge,
Probably not.
but because, it was that sudden shock.
Right.
But this fight just goes on and on. What are we at? 70,000 Marines versus probably close to
Supposedly.
20,000 Japanese.
Right.
Because we estimated 13,000, like a
Right.
full division.
Right.
But they got reinforced with an extra brigade of Marines
Mm-hmm.
shortly before we went in.
Mhm.
And our intelligence didn't know about that. Of course, we would have known about it, we probably would have sank it.
Yes.
So
If we would have actually seen it, yes, it would have been
probably
gone.
would have sank it. So,
Right.
But it looks on paper, 70,000 versus even 20,000. That's more to 3 to 1. That's what you typically look for in battles numerically. You want
Sure.
at least a 3 to 1 advantage.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean it's going to be easy,
No.
especially when one side doesn't ever want to quit.
And this is again the mentality that the Japanese have had from day one, that you do not surrender.
And it's gotten worse. It was
Right.
already bad. I mean, Guadalcanal was bad. Taro
Right.
was bad.
Right.
Iwo Jima is ridiculous.
You just wait. It's going to get even more of
Yes.
a problem in the next battle we talk about. But as you'll see from the casualties,
But we basically almost moved back to a World War I style battle
Yes,
as we
exactly.
push across the middle of the island and then finally isolate it. Obviously, if you want to see Flags of Our Fathers and
Right.
Letters from Iwo Jima,
Yes.
the dual movie that Clint Eastwood made, I'm not a big fan of Flags of Our Fathers because you can't hardly follow anything, and it's kind of a depressing, oh, we're Americans and we're sad, which is weird because
Yeah.
we're winning the war.
right?
Letters from Iwo Jima, I think, really captures the Japanese side incredibly well. There's not a lot of good movies about World War II that capture the
That's
Japanese
true.
side.
That's true.
And I think he did a remarkable job of showing this one lieutenant
Right.
through the course of the, what,
Month and a half.
Well, 4 weeks.
Right.
February, February 15th to March 15th.
The thing that we find again in just a little tidbit of information, once you get to about that middle of the island, we called that the meat grinder.
Yeah, that's
the
what I mean.
Americans
World-
called it the meat grinder.
I mean, it was World War One.
Right.
You're literally advancing in yards.
Yeah, right.
It's
right.
not a big stretch. It's you lose half your platoon.
Yes.
Capturing another 15 feet of trench.
terrible.
Just
terrible.
absolutely horrible battles. And this is, of course, like the highest percentage of Congressional Medals of Honor.
Mm-hmm.
As this kind of suffering really gets solidified in that esprit de corps that the Marine Corps has always been known for.
Right.
Into men much more obviously, and of course, unfortunately given way too many opportunities
Mhm.
to sacrifice themselves for their brothers.
And you can't forget that one former Medal of Honor winner
Oh,
who
yes.
now is back on active duty.
Yeah, he went and did war bonds, hated that.
Yes,
then he
he
went
did
to
it.
be a drill sergeant.
Yes.
Okay, but didn't like that much either because he wanted to be back in the fight.
And of course,
Barcelona.
yes, we were talking about John Bastone,
Yeah.
and he again, unfortunately, dies while fighting on Iwo Jima.
Well, that's how tough of a fight it is. No matter how
Right.
good you are,
You're still
it's a
going
numbers
to be
game
out
in
there.
a lot of ways.
Mhm.
Which is what a lot of veterans will tell you. You can be as good as you want. If that bullet has your name on it,
You're
time's
done.
up.
Sorry about it. But again, the most important thing we do find, of course, is the few numbers of Japanese surrender. Most of them,
What is
again, we're not even seeing more than about 200 or
1%?
300 left to
Wow.
surrender because of their
Out of
their-
20,000, give or
correct,
take.
Correct. But again, the idea is this ritualistic suicide.
Yes. Well, and the bonsai charge, which is they've been doing since Guadalcanal.
Right.
When they get frustrated or put in a position where they're out of supplies,
They just go.
fix bayonets and charge, World War I style. Again, we talked about that with the air power last time.
Work well though.
But it's that same mentality. It's a totalitarian system
True.
that does not listen. The guys at the top
They
are
don't
not
listen
listening
to
to the guys on the
logistic.
front.
Right. They don't listen to logic. They just say,
Right.
okay, go.
And they believe spirit, elan, and a bayonet.
Nah.
We didn't hear any of that in First World War.
No, we didn't.
Oh,
no, right.
only
No,
4 years of it.
Yep, yeah.
Is going to what's win the war, and
Uh-huh.
they try it over and over again in
But
the
it's-
war, and it's almost a guarantee that's how you finish off their unit.
Right.
They gather together, they bonsai charge, and then the machine guns, which
just
at
mow
this
them
point in
down.
the war, it's what every third Marine has some sort of
Mhm.
automatic weapon.
Mhm.
Of course,
A Thompson submachine gun.
Thompson submachine gun or a 30 caliber air cooled.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, of course, you have the M1 Garand still running around,
Correct.
which my drill sergeant, well, not my drill sergeant, my ROTC instructor in high school was a veteran of Okinawa.
Oh wow.
He'd served in 3 different wars. His big thing with the M1 Garand is you could put a palm tree in that thing and it'd still fire.
Ah.
I mean, that action, if you got your finger in that action when it went forward, well, you had less fingers.
Yep.
Because it was a very strong, very capable weapon.
Mm-hmm.
But you see a lot of the Marines moving to the M1 carbine at this point.
It's a smaller.
Lighter weight, more magazine capacity.
Okay.
So you start getting that 20 and 30 round magazine
There you
instead
go.
of 8 shots.
There you go.
Which is, a bonus, especially when you're really just worried about putting a lot of bullets downrange to stop a guy with a samurai sword from gutting you.
Exactly. Exactly.
Why? The opposite of their philosophy.
Right.
Listen to the guys at the front. Change what we're making to change the battlefield.
Exactly.
So Iwo is a success, but it's a bittersweet success because the
It is.
casualties are so high.
Right.
Like 6,800 dead.
6,800 dead.
That's a whole brigade.
But 19,000 wounded.
And that's the standard.
Right.
Multiply by 3
Right.
for your casualties. In the Pacific, it's times 2 typically in the European theater.
That's ridiculous, though.
But then again, European theater, you had regular lines.
True.
So if you got wounded at the front, they took you back.
That's true.
Even with this, like the meat grinder, yeah, you might be the front line, but that line might go back
All
and
over
forth
the
like
place.
this, so they can't get you back to the corpsman. Or
That's
the
true.
corpsman tries to get you back and ends up
He
getting
gets
killed
shot,
too.
yeah.
So the casualty rates go up, and then of course it's just miserable. It's hot.
Right.
It's got dirt and sand and volcanic ash all over the place.
Mhm.
Wounds get infected quickly, and if
Yep.
you can't get evacuated, you could literally die of an infection in a couple days.
Right.
And it's a miserable place. Miserable place. Everybody who has that campaign ribbon deserves anything you can buy them. There's not many left. At
You're
this
right.
point.
There's not many. Which leads us into the next major island offensive. And again, this is the one that a large number of people will say that is the real island of Japanese mainland. Because
Yes.
it really is.
But because nobody lives on Iwo Jima.
Right, nobody lives on Iwo Jima. This is the first inhabited island, and this, of course, is the island of Okinawa.
I mean, Saipan
True,
was a Japanese occupied territory since 1914
but
when they took it from the Germans.
right, but again,
But again, you're right. This is sacred soil for absolute, and people live here.
yes, there are civilians here, which is the biggest thing. And of course, being Japanese civilians, they are going to follow much what the Japanese Army and Navy and everyone else has been indoctrinated with.
We've been told that Americans eat children.
Yes, barbecue your children.
They're gonna
rape your women and
rape your women
and force you to watch while they're doing it. It's total hogwash of propaganda, but they buy into it because it's propaganda and it's all they know.
And it's the enemy.
Right.
And we see the same thing in World War I with
True.
the Hun stabbing
Yes.
Belgian babies.
Yes, exactly.
And it probably didn't happen.
No, probably not. Just like I don't believe any U.S. service member is going to barbecue and eat children. If
Not
they
even
do-
the creepy guy in the
Yeah,
Pacific.
right, right. But again, you'll see here, the Battle of Okinawa is a little longer. Takes from April through June.
Bigger island.
It is a
By
bigger
a
island.
long
It is
shot.
true. You're looking at 60 by 20 miles.
Just 1,200 square miles.
That's a big
Versus
amount.
8.
Right. Right. And again, this is why being very close to Kyushu,
The southern island.
the southernmost island of the mainland Japan, you're only 350 miles from Kyushu, which
Now you're in fighter range.
you are definitely. And think about it, what's on Kyushu? One of two major cities that we will talk about later on. But it's a big improvement for the Americans. And so what we find again, over 100,000 Japanese soldiers on the island. Over 100,000 Japanese soldiers.
This
on
is
the
our
island.
first this is a multi-divisional engagement. Most
Correct.
of the other fights we've had, now some in the Philippines.
Yes, but
Most of these islands are like a single division
Yes.
commander, nothing above that.
But they're not big enough for
Right.
anything bigger than a single division. Now you're seeing a 1,200 square mile island that is got vegetation, that's got an infrastructure and almost.
Got a great harbor.
It does, and it makes it better for the Japanese to have that stronghold. Now here's the thing: we have the largest amphibious assault in the Pacific War on this island as
But-
well.
I mean, that's kind of one of those records that's every year we break it again.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, it's like we got one,
Yeah.
then we got another
Yeah,
one.
well,
Because
we
Tara
just- yeah.
was one of the biggest at its time.
Yeah, and so, but this being one of the later battles,
Yeah,
is,
we're deep into 45. It's April Fool.
Yeah, which that they did fool them, right?
Yeah.
But what we find, this is also a dual engagement. We start to see now the army putting its
Well, we did see
nose
the
to
army in the
grindstone.
Philippines.
But now we're seeing it
Together.
together.
Yeah.
Because on the southern section of the island, you see the army coming in. On the northern section of the island, you see the Marines coming down. And this is where, unfortunately, we do see, some of the heroics. If you've ever seen the movie Hacksaw Ridge,
That'd be a good
which is an
choice.
amazing theatrical performance of the Desmond Doss story. A conscientious objector, Seventh-day Adventist, who refuses to even pick up a gun.
Right. But he's a medic.
But he's a medic. He's a medic in the
Corpsman,
army.
technically.
No, technically he's
Oh,
in
is
the
he
army.
He's Army.
in the
Okay.
army, so he's
I
a
thought he
medic.
was Marine. It was
Nope.
Originally Marines, went Navy, but whatever. All right.
The idea, of course, is
He's
that
a medic.
He's a medic. He's helping guys out. He's doing everything that he can, and he's in this little thing called escarpment. I can't remember exactly what the number was, but they deemed it Hacksaw Ridge because literally you go up to the top of this escarpment and you're in bloody.
Well, it's rock bluffs,
Correct.
basically.
Right. And you have to climb up this rope ladder just to get to the top of it. It's about maybe 100 to 150 feet, I think, up. I can't remember
That's
exactly
a long
how.
way with all that gear.
It was. But the thing is of course, he's able to save 24 of his men
Yep.
and wins the Congressional Medal of Honor. One of the only conscientious objectors to win the Congressional Medal of
What
Honor.
was the other movie that came out? It focused on Okinawa too. And I want to say it came out a couple years before Hacksaw Ridge.
Oh,
But it wasn't the same guy, obviously.
I couldn't tell you.
I cannot remember now.
I'll have to look that up and
It obviously didn't make a big impression because I
Of
can't
course
even
not.
remember the name of it.
Right.
But there were a couple movies about Okinawa, plus we had Flags of Our Fathers.
True.
Revisiting the Good War.
Right.
So-
But the thing is also what we see within, of course, by late 44, early 45, the Japanese kamikazes making their impression as well.
Huge impression because we have the biggest fleet ever assembled in
Exactly.
the history of the planet around
Exactly.
Okinawa.
Yes.
And it's spending its entire life literally just fighting for itself.
Right.
So many times that it's not supporting the guys on shore because there's so many kamikazes coming because it's only 350 miles.
Exactly.
I mean,
you can have your your land-based aircraft.
yeah, not even just bombers anymore.
Right.
But now fighters can
Right.
come too, and
And-
they just strap big bombs in them, and here they come.
And it causes a lot of destruction of course, those destroyers hitting some of the
What is it,
carriers.
The
but-
Oriskany,
I
I think
believe so.
takes a big hit.
But again, it's a difficult time for these Army and
It's the
Marines.
Indianapolis, as a matter of fact.
Right. Wow.
They have to head home.
Yeah.
And get repaired and then get another job.
Yeah. We'll talk about that one later.
Yeah.
But one thing that I found here between April 4 and May 26, they advance for 4 miles. It takes them another almost entire month for them to go the rest of the 10 miles. So within almost a month and a half, you're only advancing 4 miles into the island, which is, of course,
Once again, World War I kind of numbers.
Correct.
Just absolute brutality just to get an extra 10 yards.
and this is just showing the fact that the Japanese are not going to give up, because again, your civilian population, your military population, they will just die in mass suicides, where we have groups of people, Japanese civilians, just leaping off of the cliff and into the ocean.
We first see that at Saipan,
Right.
And then it gets crazy because, of course, there's so many more.
Right, but again, having your major battles here taking place, and it's terrible.
And they're outgunned in every possible way.
Right.
They don't. The air powers, they don't have any. What it really comes down to it, the Americans can strafe and bomb them whenever they feel like it.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't this where we first start using napalm?
I believe that is also correct.
So, extra bonus, jellied gasoline for your face.
Yay!
We own the sea and we're shelling constantly. I mean, Marines can literally pick up a phone and call a destroyer and have them start blasting at some Japanese.
Right.
Even the weaponry. Almost every weapon that the Americans carry is semi-automatic.
Mm-hmm.
We don't carry things that don't go bangity bangity bang.
Right. Where you get those three.
They are still
shots.
bolt action shooting
Right.
with their Arasukuma or something like that rifles, which are 1890 something.
Unreal.
I mean, and their machine guns are what? Those weird little stick things.
Yep.
It's like 20 bullets.
Yep. And they jam very easily.
Very easily. But it's only 20 bullets before you have to reload. I mean,
Right.
I know you can go fast, but I mean,
You're
Americans
still-
got a belt. They just keep tacking on it.
Yes,
I got
exactly.
a 8,000 round belt.
Yeah.
I'm going to melt 2 barrels before I stop. Because we like firepower.
Right. Well, and we have a lot of it.
And then, of course, artillery.
Right.
We bring artillery in. You got 75 millimeter, 105 millimeter howitzers just blowing. Again, once again, you pick up a phone and you've got enough explosives. All of life's problems can be solved by suitable applications of high explosives.
Yep.
And
well, the death toll.
but it's
obviously.
a month. It's 2.5 months.
Right. Right.
And this is 1,200 square miles.
Right.
Kyushu is what, 2,000 square miles,
If not more.
and it's more mountains.
Right. And the thing is of course the death toll is there.
Oh,
now,
gosh.
not so much for the Americans, because of course, compared to what we saw with the casualties, the wounded, again, 3,600 here, or sorry, 36,000 in Okinawa. We had about 20,000 on Iwo, 12,000 unfortunately,
Yeah.
Marine and Army killed. But looking at the number of Japanese surrendered, less than 8,000 surrendered, and you have over 110,000 dead, whether it be in battle or suicide.
Right.
And the number of civilians, again, over 100,000 civilians killed, either, again, by fire in battle, or
Right.
they're just committing suicide, because again,
Or starving.
right, because it's
How
a
do you get food?
2-month battle. A 2.5-month battle, you're
Whereas,
not going to get your food.
Like you said, some of those battles, literally, your village could be a battle site for 2 weeks.
Exactly, because you're just drawing this whole movement down to a snail's
Oh,
crawl almost.
yes. Not even a quick snail.
No, this is like I'm a snail who's fat, old, and lazy.
I'm Speedy Gonzalez's sidekick there.
Yeah.
Poncho.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
It goes really slow.
And so what we find, of course, is the outcomes of the battle. We are now very close to the Japanese mainland. Like we mentioned in the beginning, they can now take bombers and escorts of fighter pilots.
Well, I mean, the fighter pilots are now strafing things on the
Correct.
ground. They don't have to stay up at 30,000 feet with the bombers and just sit there
Right.
and protect against fighters that aren't coming up anyway.
No.
They can go down and hunt targets of their own.
Right.
And trains, cars. I mean, it's just like the Germans talked about at the end of the war. You didn't want to be a car on the road at noon because you were dead.
Right.
And then Curtis LeMay, who was a captain at the start of the war, gets promoted over and over again. Of course, the casualty rate in Europe in the bomber was high enough that that's going to be easier than you'd like. But he comes. He's got a bulldog attitude with his little cigar stuck in his face. But he literally is he would have been made the I can't remember the Italian guy's name who first proposed strategic bombing of cities. Curtis LeMay would have been his biggest disciple. He was ready to bomb
anything and everyone.
But they already had a list coming up.
That's true.
Because the bomb is getting close. But nobody knows if it's even going to work. Even some of the scientists working on the Manhattan Project don't know if it's going to work when they try it out. But we're not even, this is June.
Yeah.
We don't even test till another month.
Yeah.
And so we don't know. So the admirals and the generals sit down and they start making their plan. Already in America, they've changed the way the draft works.
Mm-hmm.
They lowered the age much earlier than we thought. We looked that up. It was 43.
43 is when they eventually lower the draft age to 18. But again, I don't think you're seeing much.
But they start changing what they go into.
Right.
You quit putting them in air crew because you got a lot of air crew.
Right.
And you don't have time to train them.
True.
You're looking at trying to end this war by Christmas.
Yeah.
That's always the time.
Always the target.
Get the troops home by Christmas. I'm like, you didn't plan to even invade Honshu until March of the next year. So which Christmas? They'll just leave that blank.
TBD.
But it's a big change because they need a lot more infantry. Gotta have some trigger pullers.
That's true.
Cannon cockers, all those guys.
Everyone that's going to be able to
fighting in Japan.
Yes.
And we've seen Japan. Iwo and Okinawa have set the stage of bloodiness. I mean, the casualty rate on Okinawa for American troops was 35%. You had a 1 in 3 chance of either being killed or wounded if you landed on Iwo Jima or on Okinawa, and probably the same on Iwo Jima, real close. Well, actually worse on Iwo Jima.
Yeah.
Iwo Jima only landed with 25,000.
Yes.
No, 70,000. And we lost 27. So that's even worse. That's
You're looking at a quarter.
Well, closer to 40%.
Right.
40% a chance. That's not fun.
Not fun at all.
And so now they have to start figuring out, how do we land? If we're going to land 200,000, 300,000 guys on Kyushu, we're looking at 100,000 casualties. Of which a quarter of those will be dead.
Right.
25,000 dead for a single island starts getting ugly. Wow. And that's assuming we can kill them that quick.
Exactly.
Because now we're going to be fighting in cities.
Now you're getting into guerrilla warfare. You're getting into everything. But
do you kill all the women?
Right.
Because they can carry guns and grenades.
Exactly.
It's
a brutal.
We'll talk more about the planning.
Yeah.
For Operation Downfall, which is not very secret.
No.
I mean, you're going to come up with a secret code name. Downfall seems like something. If I'm a Japanese spy, I'm going, that's probably important.
Yeah. It's not like Operation Iceberg, is it?
Yeah. What's iceberg? Lettuce.
Yeah.
I mean, what are they going to attack? Honestly, if I were looking at Operation Iceberg, I'm thinking they're going after an island up in Alaska.
Exactly.
But no.
Nope.
Okinawa.
Nope.
So
that again will be our next episode.
Next episode, we'll start talking about how the Americans planned. I should say the Allies, but it's in the Pacific,
in a way,
especially. It's the Americans on that fleet off the coast of Okinawa. The British send their strength of their navy, and it's a task group.
Gosh.
We have so many fleets, so many ships that all they can offer us is basically a task group.
Unreal.
And the Australians even less.
Well, they don't really have anything.
They don't have much anything anyway. We can talk more about them next time too. But the plan is, how do we get onto the island? How do we capture the emperor? Because that's really it's literally a game of chess.
Yep.
If we can capture the emperor, maybe we can end this war.
Right. Take care.